Welcome to the Asian Civilization Museum. My name is Siang. I'm a docent. I'm going to bring you to the third level gallery where you have fashion, textile, jewelry and ceramics. Our first stop on this tour is the Gallery on Fashion and Textiles. Here we will examine the period from the late Qing 1820 right up to the end of the Cultural Revolution 1976. During this tumultuous period of about 150 years, we can see the changes which affected society, whether it was male, female or class system. Everyone pointed from 1949 when the communist regime came to order. The idea was to have an equality system for everyone. The fashion revolution evolved from the strict code imposed by the Manchu dynasty, where only certain classes could wear certain clothes and there was a clear distinction between classes. After the dynasty crumbled in 1912, there was a period of uncertainty and civil war, and in 1949 Mao Zedong consolidated his power and he ruled China until 1981 when he passed away, and the mantle passed on to Deng Xiaoping, who brought China into the world, the real world, because China had closed itself for such a long time. Now we are here to examine the formal dress from the period 1820 to 1911, strictly the late Qing period. If you will look here, this oversized costume is a throwback to the period when the Manchus were conquerors. They were roaming the steppes of Asia. They were on horseback and they had to wear very thick clothes. And this translated into what you see now, much finer fashions incorporating Chinese elements. And you can see here, there are altogether 9 dragons. The dragon is considered the highest level of attainment in rank for the emperor. And the color yellow is reserved for the emperor and his wife and his mother. And you can see there are also 12 symbols. For example, the sun, the moon, and you can also see the bottom section is the sea, and he is representing the ruler of the 7 seas. He will control the world. And if you look further, you will see all sorts of auspicious symbols. Alright? You can see the sleeves. They are meant to be oversized, but it's not that the emperor was fat or thin, but it was just a fashion. And if you look at the lapel, it cuts across there, and beneath, if you open up the flap, there is also another dragon. Now, if we move further here, you can see this is another version. It's a little bit more casual, for a more casual festive occasion. And over here, this will be the robe worn by his wife, the empress. And brown was another color of yellow, in the range of yellow. And you can see a similar design to that of the husband. You can see the dragons are also more colorful, more attractive. And how do you distinguish that this robe is worn by the female? You can see the epaulets there next to the neck. It's like the shoulders distinguish the design from the husband's. And you can see it's like a vest, right? It's like a vest. And The dragon is also signifying the top status of the wife. And in all occasions, whatever the husband is wearing, the wife will be wearing a similar costume. And next we move to another costume here, also for the female, for someone lower than the rank of the empress. And over here, these are more casual, and you can see that these are for different classes of people. Now, in Qing China, class distinction is very, very important. Okay? And let's move over here. These are vests worn by different officials. And what is most interesting is the queue. I'm personally interested in the queue because my great-grandfather also wore the queue, just like any other Chinese. Now, the queue was banned by the Republic government in 1912 after the imperial government collapsed in late 1911. And you can see the queue, or rather the pigtail, which was described in derogatory fashion by the people at that time. It was imposed by the Manchu dynasty on the people of China when they invaded China in 1644. And this was imposed against the will of the people. But unfortunately, even by 1911, some Chinese mistakenly believed that the queue was the mark of identity for the Chinese. But of course, there were more enlightened Chinese who with the benefit of exposure to Western education and with a higher intellect, they realized that the queue was actually a form of subjugation of the Chinese people by the Manchu rulers. Now, let's come over here and I'll show you another aspect of the decadent Chinese, or rather Manchu practices of foot binding. Now, foot binding involves a very painful, forcing the little child to wear very close fitting shoes, and they will literally break your bones to fit into those little shoes. Now, foot binding was later banned after 1912, right? And I personally saw a neighbor. She was about 82 years old in the early 1980s. Before she died around 1985, she was shuffling in her foot shoes, and she told me it is a very painful exercise to be wearing this kind of shoes. And she said when she was young, she was forced to break her bones to fit into these shoes. Yet, they could say, the Manchu people could say, the men, they would say, oh, this is something very beautiful. Now, let's go on next to another evolution of the Chinese dress, which, as you can see, different versions of the qipao, or in Cantonese they call cheong sam. My mother used to wear this in 1955 after she saw the movie Love is a Very Splendid Thing. Jennifer Jones acted as the Eurasian Han Soo-in with William Holden. And that was a very successful movie. Thank you very much. We'll cut there. Okay? You see before you a toned down, a very somber, simple design called the Mao suit. It is based on the one worn by Dr. Sun Yat-sen, considered the founder of modern China. It was Dr. Sun who engineered the overthrow and revolution which caused the Qing dynasty to collapse in 1911. By the time Mao Zedong had led the Chinese population to a communist regime of egalitarian equality, the Mao suit had become standard wear. The ostentatious fashions of the prior years before 1949 came to be a thing of the past. And on 1st of October 1949, Mao Zedong pronounced to the people of China in Beijing that the country was an independent communist nation, free to rule themselves on their own without interference from anyone. And the years from 1949 to 1966 were marked by slow progress. But Mao Zedong ventured on. But towards his later years, 1966 to 1976 was marked by a period of political upheaval. And that was when the introduction of the Red Guards, who went around proclaiming the thoughts of Chairman Mao in this little red book called Mao's Red Book. And these workers were to represent the typical Chinese of the whole of China. And Mao Zedong was to die in 1981, and his place was later taken over by the reformer Deng Xiaoping. Now, if you look closely at the Mao suit, it's very simple. There are 5 buttons which signify the branches of government. And the 4 pockets signify propriety, honesty, humility, and justice. Now in the jewelry section, we have examples, and this lady here, she is Mrs. Chi Hong Jiang. She is my great-grand auntie. Now she wears the Penang style. Yeah. Now if we contrast the Penang style croissants that my great-grand auntie wore, now she is born in Malacca. Of her ancestor was the Capitan China in Malacca. Now she did not wear the Malacca style croissant, but instead opted for the Penang croissant Ibu, which you see here. The top croissant is larger and is shaped like a heart, and it has 2 smaller circular croissants. It is used to fasten either a baju panjang or later the kebaya. But in actual fact, the kebaya is a modern innovation, and this croissant Ibu was no longer popular with the modern kebaya. The croissants feature gold, metal, and rose-cut diamonds. Now, rose-cut diamonds are not as good as real diamonds, but they have an elegance which is very romantic and which shimmers. These crisps are considered sacred heirlooms, which transmit legitimacy to the ruler. It is thought to have originated in the 14th century from Java and then spread to the rest of the Malay archipelago. Whether as a weapon or as a family heirloom, it is using a forged technique in which bars of iron and nickel are welded together. The wave shape of the blade reflects the use of the crisp as a weapon. Those with high stations in life would wear the ceremonial shorter crease in front of the abdomen around the navel, while the warlike longer crease would be worn by the left side of the torso. This belt, called the buckle or the pending, is attached to 18 panels made of gold and features brilliant cut 75 carat diamonds. The buckle can be detached and worn separately as a brooch. The buckle is made by South Indian craftsmen, usually from Ceylon, now Sri Lanka, and they reflect Indian influence. The technique of setting diamonds used the arju, or they call diamond set in hollow frames. This allows less gold usage and more sparkle to the diamonds. During the war, some Peranakan families had to sell their assets to survive. It was said that these buckles and belts provided much needed cash. Pity some sold the panels one by one until only the buckle was left as an heirloom. The bridal headdress is of the Penang Chinese variation among the Peranakan Chinese. It is decorated with bright blue kingfisher feathers. The gilded ornaments with auspicious and protective meanings include phoenixes, the 8 immortals, and the 3 star gods. The star gods are a common feature of Peranakan households, and they manifest the aspirations of many Ababa Chinese who wish to have abundant age, children, and money. The Malacca version is similar in features, but its structure is different. The Peranakan Chinese are descendants of Chinese sojourners who traded in Southeast Asia. Some did not go back to China, but settled down in port cities such as Semarang, Surabaya, Batavia, now Jakarta, Penang, Malacca, and Singapore. They absorbed indigenous cultures while retaining their Chinese spiritual beliefs.
One, action.
Now you are here in the third gallery for ceramics, and in this introduction we will show you most of the items here are either stoneware or earthenware, and as you can see, most of them are for utilitarian use, for daily use at work or in the house for other purposes as well. Only this piece here, this tray here, a bit of the blanc de Chine porcelain, this is for ornamental use, right? Now the rest, for the teapot, the table screen, and this piece here is for putting sweetmeats, and here this rabbit hair here or hair is used for supplying the deceased for in his afterlife to feed him. And here you have this beautifully curved ornament here. This is for the roof of the Chinese house. And here you'll never guess this ware here, it's a stoneware. Now it is used for as a pillow. All right. Now it is thought that the Chinese, it looks very odd. It looks like it's bent here and it goes in an awkward angle. But the fact is that this, from my own personal experience, it actually gives you a very comfortable sleep. Somehow the engineering of it enables the stoneware to adjust to your neck. And these two bowls are basically ordinary bowls for meals. And you can see here, this is a picture of a worker during the communist era, right? And here the worker is also quoting something from the mouse quotations from the red books. And here you have this very quaint sort of a table bed of food which is used to be included in the grave of the deceased. Because the Chinese believe that when the deceased goes into the afterlife, he needs to be fed. He needs to eat. Okay? And that's why we have things like ancestral worship. Right? Then we'll bring you to something modern. It's not exactly old. This was made in the 20th century, and it's actually a teapot. It is designed in the shape of a ginger, but it's actually a teapot. Okay? Now, this is also another teapot, but it has Western influence. It looks like a lamp at night, okay? But it's used as a teacup, as a teapot. All right. The Blanc de Chine Tehua white porcelain. In the 16th century, the potters in Tehua County of Fujian province perfected what became known in Europe as Blanc de Chine, or white from China. These wares have a white translucent body with a smooth glossy glaze that has been likened to ivory, pork fat, or milk jade, or even white jade. The whiteness is attributed to the very pure porcelain stone from Tehua. It is suited to high temperature filings, allowing potters to make complex figures with fine details, which you can see in a moment. Can you see that? Okay. The relative stiffness of the material also makes it suitable for molding. Tehua porcelain was at first used at homes and temples. It attracted the attention of consumers in Southeast Asia and Europe. One noted obsessive collector was Augustus the Strong, King of Poland. He sponsored the setting up of a porcelain making factory in Meissen, Germany. He actually imprisoned this person who could help him to set up the factory. Now, most of the Blanc de Chine exhibits you see here, now they are from the collection of Frank and Pamela Hickley. They donated the collection to the Asian Civilization Museum in the year 2000. And incidentally, Pamela Hickley was the secretary of the last two colonial governors in Singapore. This is the grotto with the Kuan Yin under the Blanc de Chine collection. The Kuan Yin is the goddess of mercy dedicated to relieving the suffering of all beings. The swirling waves represent Kuan Yin's home. She is flanked by a boy pilgrim and a dragon princess. If you look closely at the waves, they are so intricately carved. And look at all the little, there's even a kind of a peach there. And we can only marvel at the kind of grotto. It is done such a way that if you visit a real grotto, you'll probably be amazed at the kind of detail that the potters were able to create for this piece. This is a family in Western dress, 17th century. This European family is popularly known as Governor Duff. He was probably the Dauphin, Governor General of the East India Company from 1729 to 1731. And if you see the items on the dinner table, there were probably some kind of chicken. And you will see the dog desiring for a piece of the dinner. And if you look at the hat of the gentleman and probably his son, and if you look closely at the lady on the right, it's probably his wife. She looks like a lady dressed like the Kuan Yin.
Action.
Now you are looking at the blue and white pottery, which is a very important highlight of the Chinese pottery history. It reached its peak during the Yuan dynasty from 1279 to 1368, and it is derived from firing the cobalt ore, which is imported from Persia. And as you can see, the choice of the color of the blue depends on the reigning emperor, and also the way it has been fired gives different shades of blue. And you can see here, there's also the bowl which features the dragon, which is very central to the position of the emperor. And the next one is also the same. You have again features of the dragon. And here we have a dish. All right, you have a vase, a dish and a vase. They're all in blue and white. Now, even till today, the blue and white are used for two different purposes. One is for ancestral worship. At the same time, it's also used for ordinary meals. This is a bowl with dragons and phoenix from the Ming dynasty, from the Jiaqing reign. The dragon is a symbol of power, strength, and good luck. The Emperor of China usually used the dragon as a symbol of his imperial strength and power. This is a dish from the Qing dynasty from the 18th or 19th century, porcelain. The central panel portrays a woman fixing her hair while her attendant looks on. Once a resplendent piece of porcelain, the silver has worn off in areas and has darkened over time. The gilded designs on the red panels are mostly lost. One can wonder how such a large dish, what were the kinds of food to be placed on it. In today's generation, I can only speculate that we would have a cold dish placed on this dish during Chinese New Year. This very pretty vase with bats amongst the clouds. Now, bats are very popular in the Chinese culture. They signify fertility, good fortune, happiness. The imagery of bats flying amid clouds suggests the bestowal of blessings from the heavens. Warriors. These figures were once part of a miniature army, buried with the deceased to serve and protect him in the afterlife. The curved legs of the cavalryman indicate he was originally placed on a horse, which was probably carved from wood and had disintegrated over time. The Chinese always believed in the afterlife, and when the emperor had passed away, he would want his servants and many members of his household to follow him into the afterlife. However, this concept no longer applies today.
3, 2, 1, action.
What you see here are two guardian beasts. Their job is to guard the deceased. They act something like lions that guard your house as you come in. So, lions for the living, and these two guardian beasts for the deceased. And you can see their faces are meant to look very ugly, is to repel evil forces. I have also seen similar effigy-looking puppets which are made of paper and they are actually paraded in the funeral procession. Now I have seen old photographs where these are shown and these are actually burned later on when the coffin is lowered into the grave. The high malleability of shisha clay enable Yixing potters to create all kinds of ceramic designs and forms. Here you see a ginger form teapot, which is earthenware. It's modeled as a tall piece of ginger growing from the earth. The highly realistic ginger highlights the skill of the potters. This is one of my favorite pieces from the ceramic gallery.